Hey guys, my name's Ryan.
And my name is Sarah, and today's big idea is Jesus' peace in us helps us make peace with others.
Yes, Sarah, you've shared a little bit of your story with us before, and we know that you were bullied when you were younger and how Jesus has helped you in that. And today, we get to see a strong, confident young woman who reflects the peace that Jesus gives to us. And I was just wondering if you could share just a little bit about that journey for us.
Yeah, Ryan, when I was being bullied, I believed the lies of all the things that people were saying about me, and I didn't have the confidence to be who I truly am. But God reminded me of how He sees me and the love that He has for me, and I became confident in the person that I am today. And through His love for me, I was able to see how much He loves others, and those people who were bullying me were actually hurting themselves, and that helped me be able to love them in return.
Wow, that's so encouraging for us to hear. We're going to hear a God story now that I actually think could change the way we treat our friends and our family. Let's watch this.
Why did the melon jump into the lake? Because it wanted to be a watermelon. Hey everyone, it's Alyssa. Okay, so back in grade school, I had this friend and we ended up getting in this huge fight. And neither of us wanted to be the peacemaker and apologize, and so we ended up drifting apart. But recently, we ran into each other and realized we have so much in common. We have a really great friendship now. We ended up talking through that fight and realizing it was such a small and silly thing, and we really should have made an effort to make peace. And because we didn't, we ended up missing out on such a great friendship. Birthdays, special occasions, summers we could have spent together. We missed out on that because we didn't want to make peace. It's hard to make up with someone when you're in a fight. It's hard to admit that you're wrong. It's also hard to accept an apology from someone that's really hurt you. But when we're in a relationship with Jesus, His peace is in us. And that brings me to today's big idea. Jesus' peace in us helps us make peace with others. In this series, we've been talking lots about peace. We've talked about this full idea of peace called shalom. We've talked about bringing light to the world. And today, we're going to continue with the Sermon on the Mount in Matthew 5. You have heard what was said to people who lived long ago. They were told, "Do not commit murder. Anyone who murders will be judged for it." Okay, who are these people that lived long ago? They were the Israelites, God's special family. And they were told not to murder in the 10 commandments that God gave to them way back in Exodus 20. Okay, so don't murder. That makes sense. Let's keep reading. But here is what I tell you. Do not be angry with a brother or sister. Anyone who is angry with them will be judged. Again, anyone who says to a brother or sister, "Raka," must stand trial in court. And anyone who says, "You fool," will be in danger of the fire in hell. Jesus is saying, not only should you not murder, but even if you're angry with someone, that's just as unacceptable. In other words, Jesus is saying it's not just what you do, it's not just your actions that matter, but it's what you're thinking in your heart as well. In the same way that murder is super violent, we can be violent with our thoughts and our words as well. Jesus wants us to be loving and peaceful in both what we say and do. Let's keep reading. Suppose you are offering your gift at the altar, and you remember that your brother or sister has something against you. Leave your gift in front of the altar. First go and make peace with them. Then come back and offer your gift. So in the Jewish religion, before the death and resurrection of Jesus, people would give offerings at an altar, a small animal, some crops, or some grains, something that they owned, that they gave to God to ask for forgiveness or give thanks to Him. So in other words, Jesus is saying that if you're in a worship service asking for forgiveness from God or praising Him, and you remember that you're in a fight with someone or you haven't apologized for something, you need to drop what you're doing and go and make peace with them first. As we consider our relationship with Jesus and understand how to best love and serve Him, we need to consider our relationship with others and understand how we can love and serve them too. If we're in a fight with someone, God wants us to go and make peace with them. It's that important to Him. And the incredible thing is, when we have Jesus in our lives, His peace in us helps us to make peace with others. Remember how I told you about my friend and how we had that big fight, but we were able to make up? That was definitely Jesus' peace in our lives that helped us to do that. Guys, this has been so fun, and I will catch you next time. Peace out.
quickly turn to the person next to you
and discuss the following questions.
Question time! True or false? Jesus said, it's okay to be angry with your brother or sister and call them names. False. He said, do not be angry with a brother or sister. Anyone who is angry with them will be judged. Again, anyone who says to a brother or sister, Raka, must stand trial in court. True or false? If you're in a worship service asking forgiveness from God or giving thanks to Him, and you realize that you've hurt someone and have not apologized, you need to drop what you are doing and go make up with them first. True. What word is missing? Jesus loves, and His in us helps us make with others. Peace.
Game time! Stampede. Can you say the key verse before the stampede ends? Get ready. 3, 2, 1, go! Say it with me. Those who are peacemakers will plant seeds of peace and reap a harvest of righteousness. James 3, verse 18.
I often hear people say, don't go to bed angry, and that just simply means not holding on to that anger. And after hearing that God story, I think that's a great idea.
Yeah, you're right. And you know what, Sarah? I actually think if we live our lives in a way where we don't judge others and we actively make peace with those around us, we can actually change people's circumstances and help those who are struggling.
We have a great video of a guy who experienced a lot of conflict early on in life. Let's watch and see how that worked out for him.
Yeah, I definitely wanted to rebel. I was getting myself into trouble at home and trouble with the law, and I'll never forget that. That really was the beginning of my journey back. I grew up in a small town in Ontario called Coldwater. So growing up in a small town, there wasn't a lot to do except there's a local ski hill and an ice rink, and I could basically choose what I wanted to do, so I chose skiing. So I've been skiing ever since I could walk, basically. So I took lessons at the local ski hill, and then I also even started to work there, just working with the little kids and helping them learn how to ski. And my buddy and I were trying to always sneak into the terrain parks. Back in the day when skiers weren't allowed in the terrain parks, it was a snowboard only. So for a skier to want to get into the terrain park, that was, we had a lot of barriers to cross. So it took a couple of years to earn the respect of the snowboarders there. I don't know if they ever fully did, but I think they did. Growing up as a kid, going to public school, and I was known and associated with Christianity, I definitely wanted to almost get away from that. That's basically where things started to get challenging for me. I was getting myself into trouble at home and trouble with the law. Yeah, what made me hit rock bottom was one night driving recklessly. We got pulled over and charged and thrown into jail that night for dangerous driving, and it was a criminal offense at the time. That really stopped me in my tracks. I had made a lot of stupid decisions up to that point, but I knew that this was going to affect my life for the next year at least, not being able to drive, being more close to home, and have to rely on others. So at that time, where I had to depend on a lot of people to take me places, and people from church really rallied around me, and they really showed true concern for me and prayed for me, and I'll never forget that. That really was the beginning of my journey back to the Lord. And it was just a way for God to get a hold of my life and just be still and be quiet, and a chance for me to get my life right with the Lord. And he really did. He used that time to show me himself and to show me that he was really there all along. And I decided to give my life back to Christ at the age of 19. After I came back to Christ, my testimony was kind of radical and I was asked to share it in front of youth groups and stuff. I got involved in youth ministry and had a small group of guys that I was mentoring and leading in that way. So I decided to join the two things that I loved, which was working with youth and skiing, and start something called Righteous Riders, which would be a ski group where I would be able to coach kids how to ski in the park, but also just to kind of journey with them so they would have someone older to look up to. I think I even had a little bit of pressure that I had to serve the Lord doing this mission, but he really isn't interested in what we're doing for him. He just wants ourselves, and when we give him ourselves, he'll do something with that. And I really felt like Jesus came after me, and he pursued me, and he won, and I surrendered my life. And life now there's so much more hope, and I really realize that now.
Wow, Sarah, isn't that amazing how David at a young age was arrested, thrown into jail, and yet the community around him allowed him to understand Jesus' love for him, and he changed his life because of that.
And because of the love from others, he was able to commit himself to God. And now he's working with youth, and he's helping them and reflecting God's love to them.
Yeah, that is so encouraging for me, and I hope for you and everybody else today. Let's break into our small groups now to see what Jesus' peace in our lives looks like.